Okay.
All right, we're back with another very special edition celebrating the life and times of one John Michael Ozzy Osbourne with the longtime head of promotion, the promotion man himself from CBS, the Columbia Epic family. It is Paul Rappaport with Gliders Over Hollywood. Check his book out.
I appreciate it. Thanks. Yeah. It's kind
Well,
of a lot of
Paul,
tales in there.
I know. We can't get enough of them. And, every time one of these legends passes, it reminds us that these were special times. And of course, characters are still created today, but their shelf life can be very short. Like they say, here today, gone tonight, in some
Yeah, well,
cases.
that's the business we're in. I don't want to say the business we're in because the business that I was in has changed. And now it's pretty much everything lives in a pop world. And it's literally like that. A single is popular for a little while and then it goes away and it really doesn't stay in anybody's hearts, generally, unless you have a real artist or a singer-songwriter, giving us messages that matter. And those times, the late 60s, 70s, 80s, and into the 90s, there were a lot of messages that mattered, like from Bob Dylan to Alice in Chains. It's all music that has that tells us something or helps shape our lives or warns us about things or celebrates love or whatever. But today it's quite different. And so when these people pass, especially people that have been around a long time, and people that have careers like the Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd, Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne, David Bowie. There's a lot of music inside of us. Uh, Album after album, track after track, concert after concert that we've witnessed. So it hits us very hard because they were such a part of our lives. I mean, that's those years, a lot of your lives are shaped by music. That's your biggest sort of, that and film is your biggest entertainment. That there are no, computers yet. There's no smartphones. There's no social media. So I think for that reason,
And we were so excited about a new record or a new record by an artist that we love, and we couldn't wait for that next chapter. I mean, the thought today of us running down and camping at a record store to be the first one to buy it, to get our cash or card out, or line up to buy tickets to a concert that's like 6 months, 9 months away. It's it's hard to imagine. So the music really impacted us. It was much more a part of our life. Now you came up through college radio,
well,
um,
actually,
well,
I was a
college promotions.
yeah, I was a
Yeah,
college promotion man. I was a college representative for Columbia
at,
Records
at UCLA, which
at
is
UCLA.
one of the great campuses in America. And, anywhere in America, people dream of going to USC or UCLA in the sunshine and the beautiful West Coast here. And what year did you get that
So,
gig?
1969. So I went, yeah, yeah, I
1969.
went to UCLA from from 67 to 71.
Wow.
Um,
What
and
formative years. Yeah.
yeah, so no, those are they're amazing formative years. I mean, listen, I mean, you're talking about an America that as a teenager, right? Okay, I'm born in 1948. I'm a teenager going to high school. I am driving a 390 Mustang Fastback, yellow, right? I put
Uh-huh.
mag wheels on it. It's a fucking race car. Oh, are we? Can we?
Yeah, we are good.
Can we curse?
Absolutely.
Okay. Anyway,
Fuck yeah.
yeah. Okay. I don't usually. It just comes out sometimes. So that's a race. Okay. I'm driving that car. I'm a surfer. I'm playing in bands on the weekends, and I'm trying to fit high school in between all this.
Yeah.
That's a teenage life,
Like
right?
class?
In
What
1966,
what class?
yeah, 1965. I mean, when I think of it, I go, that's insane. Like, that's a movie. I mean, we were a movie. They made movies about it,
Yeah.
right?
How
It's like,
how how did how did they let us graduate? I don't know.
how they let us graduate? How the hell they give people like me the keys to the kingdom at Columbia Records? They gave the inmates the keys to run it, because we were from that music, right? That I didn't realize. Not only were they looking for street teams, to help sell Columbia Records on college campuses, because you could try to get the record played on a new album played on college radio. You could get a review in the Daily Bruin. You could do ads in the Daily Bruin. You could set up displays in Westwood Village. And so in major, colleges around the country, we had these college reps. But what I also didn't understand at the time is they were grooming us to be the next executives, because the
Sure.
people I worked for, they were all from the 50s. They didn't understand this music. They were happy for the windfall, but you got to realize that before 1969, I mean, in the early 60s, there's pop, but the record labels, they're making okay money. It's not a giant business that it became once rock became huge. It's a good business. But to give you an example, CBS Broadcasting owned a number of things. Excuse me. And they owned this record label, Columbia Records,
Uh-huh.
and it was ancillary money. This wasn't the broadcast network, right? The broadcast radio stations, the television stations, that brought in the big money. It's only when rock starts to sell a gold record, then a platinum record. I mean, I hate to date myself, but I remember the first platinum record that I got was for Journey. All of a sudden, we sold 1 million records. We used to sell gold records. The
Yeah.
business doesn't even become a business until around 1975, maybe a little bit earlier, when someone realizes, oh my God, we, this is a business. We have to sort of ratchet it down. We have to pay attention to these guys' expense reports. We have to make this, we have to treat it more like a business, because when I first started, it was just like the Wild West. There were no rules. My first job, okay, so I'm a promotion man for 2 years at college. Then I get a local promotion job of albums. I'm working all formats.
Uh-huh.
My first job, I have an expense account. My expense account has no ceilings. I'm 25 years old. We're driving around in limousines. Like what? It's not real. It's like made up fantasy.
You could go to
Uh,
any restaurant and order any drinks or food you wanted,
yeah, it was nuts.
as,
And
as
then
long
so,
as it was tied to a quote act.
yes. And if you flew with an act, we didn't fly first class, but if you flew with an artist, you flew first class. Very quickly they went, "Oh my God, we got to rein in these expense accounts. They're like out of control." And but even so, you're still walking around with like a $25,000 expense, a year expense. I mean, that's a lot of money. So it just we were making so much money, they couldn't keep up with it all. It's, like when Bruce Springsteen hits and Billy Joel hits, and all of a sudden Pink Floyd has a career because they did Dark Side, and we had the rest of their career. They came to
Yeah.
us
Wish you were here.
with Wish You Were Here and everything else. All of this stuff. Yeah, they made a decent amount of money on, pop acts like Barbra Streisand and Neil Diamond, and they had other acts like Tony Bennett and different people. But when you're talking about records that sell 500,000, a million, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, that's a whole nother world. That explosion in the 70s, which turns in the 80s, in the 80s it becomes even a bigger business. That is, it's something that was of a time, because the music was of a time. There's a whole baby boom generation of people that are living their life differently than our parents. Bob Dylan's writing the times they are changing, and they are. People think different about life, the way to live life. All of it's reflected in the music. So, when somebody like David Bowie passes, or Ozzy, it just stops you in your tracks. It's
Yeah,
hard. It's hard to,
it's hard to remember a time that they weren't with us.
yes, like you can't imagine a world without them. What do you mean David Bowie's gone? What do you mean Ozzy? I know he's got Parkinson's, but what do you mean he died? It's like I can't. There's so much, Black Sabbath music and Ozzy music in my brain. I can't. It's hard to deal with.
We'll talk
You know,
about when you first heard Black Sabbath, because you had already joined the college ranks, with Columbia, but they're on Warner Brothers. But you start hearing about this super heavy kind of doom, laden, heavy dissonant chords of Black Sabbath.
right.
And
It's the beginning of heavy metal because I'm trying to think before Black Sabbath. Like there, like Vanilla
we
Fudge did you keep me hanging on in a heavy metal way.
right.
But I'm
And you
trying
had
to.
the heavy side of Zeppelin, but they weren't all heavy
But
metal. It
but but
was
Zeppelin isn't really metal to me. Zeppelin's like,
no, Jimmy Page cringed at the word metal.
yeah, no, he's so more melodic. It's interesting to me because I spend a lot of time with younger people and I sort of tried to teach them about rock and roll. And, of course, rock and roll has a roll to it, which is Keith Richards' favorite part of the rock and roll. It's
Hmm.
not just like Zeppelin's just rock, da, 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 right? But rock and roll is bump, ba bump, ba bump, ba bump. Right? It's a back and forth, right? That the roll is the second, the backbeat. So, but at any rate, so now all of a sudden there's this new kind of music, and it quickly, had a name for it.
Well, I know Blue Cheer came out in '68, and they were very dissonant, very distorted.
Well, they're very loud. So Blue Cheer is loud, but I don't think anybody called them metal. And in fact, I should have done my homework before we had this interview because I'm trying to think because my first memory of when somebody says heavy metal, it's Black Sabbath. That's what I think of now. I also was a big part of Blue Oyster Cult's career. Now they come along not too long after Black Sabbath. They were coined metal to a certain extent, and then of course Judas Priest, you know, when that happens, is like, holy shit, but Sabbath is really, sort of the beginning of that, that voice, that scary thing. And if anybody, any people out there who knows the history of Black Sabbath, I mean, this was something they thought about. I mean, the story goes they were watching all these horror movies and loving them, and went, well, why can't we make this into music? I mean, that's the story that I got. So,
Sure,
but at any rate,
it's like horror music.
yeah. But you hear, but the songs. I mean,
Well,
Paranoid,
the
right?
origin, the word heavy metal originated in the '50s during the beatnik where heavy was used to describe serious, profound music. So, William S. Burroughs' '61 novel, The Soft Machine, referred to addiction and, of course, used the term heavy metal thunder that, Steppenwolf jumped on.
Right.
So it's hard to, it's like punk rock. Who did who started punk rock? It keeps going back further and further, the elements of that raw, rebellious attitude. But there's no question, many deem Black Sabbath as the originators from Birmingham, England, and then of course Judas Priest came out of Birmingham a couple
Right.
of years later.
There were a lot of metal bands out of,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's the still mills, the
yeah. That's where
blue
they come from.
collar. Yeah,
Hey, listen, Glenn Tipton from Judas Priest. I remember the first time I met him. He was still learning how to play guitar.
yeah,
I think he was from Birmingham. He said, I'm
yeah. He
from
was.
yeah." He said, from an industrial part of England. I need to get out of there, and I'm hoping this works." Quote Glenn Tipton. It was out of necessity. It was like I got to do something different. At that time, KK Downing was, the guitar whiz, and Glenn was playing more rhythm. Eventually, Glenn, equaled him on leads, and they would share leads. But in the beginning, KK was the guy, and Glenn was playing rhythm. And but I remember hearing that, thinking, "Oh my God, this guy, he needs to do this, right, for his life." But I remember being in L.A. and hearing Black Sabbath, and being hit really hard by it, and really liking the songs, and liking the sound, which is unique, and Tony Iommi's unique in his tunings and how he plays and everything else. And and I also remember because I go back that far, I knew Don Arden, who Sharon Osbourne is originally Sharon Arden. He was a
Sure.
big time promoter in L.A., so I knew Don, and so I knew And so, I knew her.
This was through Jet Records.
I just, I just,
You knew him before
you meet,
Jet.
you meet these people just, probably went to Don Arden concerts and I don't know, we all knew Sharon. We're just all part of this scene. And in fact, when we heard that she was going to marry Ozzy, we were all thinking, why would anybody want to marry Ozzy? He's not the marriageable type. But I don't,
He was already married.
well, I don't know the whole story,
Sure.
except for, I remember taking my older son to see Ozzy. I wanted to make sure that my kids saw real bands because by the time my younger son came along, the business was already changing. Right. And I'm taking him, he wants to go see Matchbox 20. And we're sitting there watching Matchbox 20 and a band on Columbia that it's not very exciting. And Dad, he goes, this is like really boring. He goes, can we leave? And I'm like, well, I came for you. I said, you need to see a real rock band. So I took him to see AC/DC. And
Sure.
he blew his mind. He was like, oh my God. I go, yeah, that's what this is supposed to be. Yeah.
Well,
So,
famously, the first Sabbath album was recorded in one day, one 12-hour session on the 16th of October in 69. It was supposedly for like $700, $900.
I'm
So
not
if you could
surprised.
imagine.
You can do it. I mean, if you're pre rehearsed, and in
Oh
those
yeah,
days,
they
the
just
great thing,
played their live set. That was the album.
yeah, they played each song three times, whatever. Took the best one, or maybe they comped or what, But it is possible, to do that. So I'm not surprised. I think sometimes you can get stuck in the studio for too long, and I know artists, some of them very major league artists, who actually sort of their records get deader the more they work on them because it's just it's too much. It's not enough.
Yeah, the spontaneity is often the key.
Yeah, they're trying to make them so perfect. Now that doesn't mean to say that you can't. Certainly. I'm reading Mike Campbell's book now. Shocked to find out that Refugee, there were over 70 takes of Refugee.
Well,
That's recorded takes. That's not even the
I
rehearsal
guess we
takes.
blame Jimmy Iovine for that.
Yes, because quote unquote he wasn't hearing it. But they
Well, of
tried.
course,
You know.
talk about Sabbath where Paranoid comes out. Now they got a hit. They got a hit
Oh,
on the
Paranoid.
radio.
Well, that's one of my all-time favorite songs. Come
Came
on,
out
Paranoid.
September 18th, 1970. So you're now already doing the college promotions and on the campus. Do you remember the groundswell
Yeah, it,
of
it it changes the face of rock.
yeah,
Yeah, it
you can
just
call them
changes.
stoners, whatever, but the kids they were smoking, they were drinking, and Black Sabbath Paranoid, fairies wear boots and war pigs. I mean, this was heavy duty Vietnam War protest.
Right. Not only that, so you get that, but also I'm a player. I've been playing guitar since I was a kid. So I'm in college and now I was really getting into the blues and I was actually really getting into the guitar. Seriously, like, wait a second. I've been doing this for a long time. I've been in bands. It's great. Girls are around. It's fun. Now I'm like really getting into the instrument.
Yeah.
But when you hear Black Sabbath, it changes the way you think about chords, right? Because you hear power chords and you're like, wait a minute, I want to do this. To this day, I play power chords. I mean, I'm still in a band, and the other guitar player who's really good and knows every chord that was ever invented, he's playing those. I'm usually playing power chords just because I like to. I'm only hitting two strings. I'm hitting the E and the A string. I'm just making the biggest sound that I can, and it's fabulous. It's a lot of ZZ Top kind of stuff, but so that changes the way people think about guitars and guitar sounds, right? Because guitars sound different in the 60s. The Beatles, those guitars sound the way they do because those guitars don't even have like super slinky strings on them, right? I mean, you're talking about a whole different sound of a whole different kind of guitar. The Birds come along, with the Rickenbackers and stuff. And so we copy all that. My high school band played a lot of Rolling Stone songs. And so I'm copying Keith. Those are different sounds. But when Sabbath comes out, that's those kind of power chords. I don't think I'd ever heard anything like it until I heard Black Sabbath.
And it's
And
a
then
one guitar band. Tony Iommi's doing all of that.
yeah, and you're going, how's this guy doing this? And you're sitting in your, I was sitting in a fraternity house with amps cranked to like 11. And how's this guy doing this? So it
And then
changes the
we hear
face.
the story that he had two of his fingers chopped off in a factory.
I think there's more. I think there's three. I'm not quite sure, but he wears these tips.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
two main fingers.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
And
a
he wears
third
these.
might have been affected, but he's got, yeah,
Okay, so
got
he's
like
wearing these
plastic
tips,
tips on the
tips to
top of
play the
two
guitar. So
fingers.
he's not even feeling it. I'm so enamored with a guy who wanted to play guitar so badly and who changed the face of rock music, and he's impaired and he doesn't care. I'm doing this. Like the whole thing is very, I just think it's an amazing story. It's just so enlightening and you're just so proud of that guy. So so I took my older son. This was many years later to see Ozzy in a concert just because I wanted him to see Ozzy. So it's not Sabbath anymore. It's Ozzy's band, and Zach Wilde is the guitar player.
Sure.
Oh my God. I literally, this is going to sound funny and naive and maybe stupid, but I never, that guy was playing so fast for so many songs nonstop that I went backstage and asked him, do your fingers get hot? If you keep doing that and you don't rest them, do they actually get hot because guitar is a percussion instrument. I was teasing him. I said, somebody should have like a fire extinguisher next to you, Zach. So in the middle of the show, they spray your fingers. And Ozzy was great. Ozzy was dumping water on the crowd. Ozzy has these buckets of water. He dumps them on himself. He dumps them on the crowd. I mean, Ozzy is a man of the people. When you watch Ozzy, Ozzy isn't like I'm Ozzy and you're not. It's like a big family of people. So Ozzy would be
Yeah, he's
dumping.
like the master of ceremonies. Of
Yes, he's the master of ceremony. So he's dumping
incredible
water on
party.
people, and then he looks at people, so he dumps one on himself, as if to say, "Hey, we're all mates together. We're all getting wet together." Yeah, it's heavy metal. Yeah, it's those things. But I think Ozzy, there's a lot of heart, right? There's a lot of heart when you watch Ozzy, at least for
Well,
me.
he is. He's like the everyman. He
Yes.
doesn't claim to be, the perfect singer.
Nope.
Doesn't claim to be the perfect, musician. He doesn't play an instrument, but he interprets that love. And like he said many times, he fell in love with the Beatles, and the Beatles really led him on this road to celebrate the music inside of all of us. But by the third album, Masters of Reality, came out in August '71. That's three. The first three albums came out in like
In
just a
3
little
years.
over 2 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say 3 years, but it's not even
Two,
three
two
years.
in
Yeah.
70, one in 71, and in 72 comes Volume 4 with the song "Changes," which Youngblood just blew the roof off the stadium with. Um, and if you can imagine Sabbath doing a so-called ballad, but Supernaut, all the heavy stuff. I remember kids in my high school that would just they worship Black Sabbath. They
Well,
were
yeah,
definitely
because
stoners. They would get high as a kite and sit in their attic and just play Sabbath over and over again. It was like a ritual.
well, I think certain music becomes a ritual. I mean, with Supernaut, I can't even tell you how many times I've listened to Supernaut. I still listen to it to this day. I mean, it's like I'm a rocker, so I'm older, but my brain is still younger. You see me in a car, man. I'm rocking out. I got things cranked to 11. I'm like,
Yeah.
my hands are flailing around. I'm playing air guitar. I'm lucky
Symptom
I
of the
haven't caused any.
universe. I mean, the
Yeah,
heavier the riff, the better.
yeah. I mean, I'm lucky I haven't caused any accidents. I mean, so those kind of things stay with you, stoner or not. Because that wasn't everybody. I mean, I smoked a fair amount of dope in college, but I wouldn't call myself a stoner. It was a
Right. I mean,
weekend
we
thing,
didn't even
right?
have the term back then. You just
Yeah, but it didn't matter.
you
It
like to
was
smoke and you like to party.
yeah. But I think just the music it resonates inside you when anything's authentic. If it resonates with people. So Sabbath is is, I mean, look, if you talk to any of the metal bands, there's a lot of them. And you ask them, because I worked with some, like I worked with Slayer, and I go, who did you listen to? Sabbath, Priest, Maiden, Blue Oyster Cult. Those get cited by every modern metal band I've worked with. That's their basis. That's where they start. Then they go and do what they do. I mean, Slayer's on a whole nother level, based on, but that's their foundation, you know.
Right.
And even, and there's bands past Slayer. I mean, Slayer at this point is pretty historical, as is System of a Down. But you know,
Well,
those
famous.
are the seminal sounds. Those sounds. Sabbath invented that. And you can, of course, they're influenced by heavy, like Deep Purple had a heavy sound. There's heavy sounds, but then there's Black Sabbath, and Black Sabbath, when they exploded on the scene, man, that it was big. It wasn't like, oh, it's this underground thing called Black Sabbath. I mean, Jimi Hendrix took a second to hit, and people would tell me, you got to see this guy Jimi Hendrix, got to see this guy Jimi Hendrix, you're gonna love him. But when Sabbath hit, it would just boom, like it was big. And maybe because they had, rock hits early, but you know, it was very, very big, and it was in all of our lexicon. It was just the way that it was.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
by 73, they're coming out with Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, which is one of the most horrific album covers ever. That
right?
painting is phenomenal. And now they're on the bill near the top of California Jam,
Yeah.
like 300,000 people out there. It's right after Black Oak, Arkansas. It's Sabbath, and then Deep Purple, and then Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I mean,
Well, it was California.
ABC TV filmed the whole thing.
I was at California Jam, but there's two big ones, and I get them mixed up.
Well,
Um,
there was Cal Jam 2, and that was all CBS related. That was
right
like
there's one
79.
that Ted Nugent headlined.
Yeah, that was like that was Cal Jam 2.
Okay.
Aerosmith,
Yep.
Nugent, Hart.
Yep. Yep. I was there for
Yeah,
that.
you could tell CBS pretty much sponsored that one. It was pretty much all their acts, Mahogany Rush, all that stuff.
I love Mahogany Rush.
But
Uh,
yeah, the first one, literally Deep Purple had just replaced their lead singer Ian Gillan with
mhm.
two new guys that people never heard of, David Coverdale
Yes.
and Glenn Hughes, and they came out
Right.
with Burn, and they pretty much dominated. I mean, Emerson Lake and Palmer technically went on last, but Deep Purple kind of stole the show. But Sabbath was right up there behind
Oh yeah, no, no, that's how big
Purple.
they were. Yeah, that's they had garnered that, they had earned that spot.
And
Um,
famously, Ozzy had the peace sign. He would always hold his hands up with the peace sign,
yeah.
which was, another kind of anti-war statement. The Vietnam War had a big effect on young males, especially who were up to potentially be drafted.
Well, for all of us. I mean, I remember when they had the lottery. I was listening to the radio, and Nixon needed more troops, and so they decided to have a lottery. And your birthday got thrown into a hat. I came up number three. I was number three. I was December 30th. And I'm going, of all the things, like I've never won anything in my life. Now I'm winning a trip, a trip to Vietnam. And that's a whole other story. I didn't go. I couldn't. I just couldn't go to that thing. But no, these are heady times, and I think, like you and I were talking before, a lot of times, the times make the man. The times make great presidents. The times make presidents that don't come off so well because they're dealing with certain things. Certainly, this music, between people trying to become enlightened in the 60s and anti-war songs. I mean, it's coming from every genre. So, it could be the Beatles, it could be Black Sabbath, but everybody didn't want that war. Look at, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Ford dead in Ohio. I mean,
I mean,
So
most people didn't know where Vietnam was. They couldn't find it on a map if they tried.
yeah, so but the most amazing thing happened to me, and one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you about Ozzy was, so I've seen Ozzy from afar, and I'd met him, just backstage. Hey, how you doing? But I never, excuse me, got to know him because he was on Epic. He was on our sister label. So from time to time, I'd meet people that were on the sister label, like Ted Nugent, Charlie Daniels, Jeff Beck, because I'm a fan of these people. So I'd meet him and talk to him, but I never really got to know them until I was hired long after my years at Columbia Records. I was doing indie promotion for a lot of rock acts, and I was hired to work Black Sabbath's 13 uh, at
The
Rock Radio.
reunion album.
Yeah, the reunion album. So, I'm a professional, and I'm proud to say that if you wind up, getting my book, you'll read about a lot of how I thought about rock promotion and some of the innovative things that I would come up with because I always viewed promotion as an art form. So we're backstage, and my friend Jay Krugman was in charge of marketing that album. Now, he's also ex Columbia uh, marketing man, marketing maven. This guy is probably the greatest marketing man I ever worked with. His name's Jay Krugman. Um, so um, so Jay says, "Hey, you want to meet Ozzy?" I said, "Yeah, I've met him, but not. I've never really had a conversation with him." So I think, based on the event I just saw, that I'm going to meet, crazy Ozzy. But that's not who I meet. I meet a very well-spoken, very smart human being who can be crazy Ozzy and do that thing. But there's a whole nother side of him, which I'm not surprised because when you see that sort of big heart of his come out on stage, you know there's more to it. He looked at me and he said, I know exactly what you do. I know exactly what you're doing. I know all those radio stations. I'm watching them come in one by one. I'm watching the rotations. I'm watching us getting heavy rotation. He says, I know what you do for a living because this is my living too. And then he said, I can't thank you enough for all your hard work on this because I know it's hard work and I can tell you're passionate. But he said, I worked so hard on this album. This is a really special record for me. And you need to know how much I appreciate what you're doing. So I'm not expecting this from, the TV Ozzy and whatever Ozzy I've seen. But it didn't shock me because anybody who stays in that business for that long, they have to have a work ethic and they have to be pretty together on the business side. Now, Sharon, is the manager and she's a huge part of that deal. I don't want to take anything away from Sharon, but Ozzy himself, I mean, he's the guy. And so I was surprised and I wasn't surprised. I just didn't think I was going to meet that guy. Um, and meant a lot to me. When you're trying to take the hill and you work with art, I've been lucky to work closely with artists like Bruce Springsteen and Pink Floyd and the Stones. And when you go to take the hill, they look at you eye to eye. It's that the celebrity thing is gone. We're all trying to do the same thing, to help their career along. All those people have something in common, and it is that work ethic and the smarts of what do I do next and how do I do this and how do I reinvent myself. You can't have a career as long as Ozzy Osbourne if you don't think like that. But I just didn't expect, um, you know, I just didn't expect that from him just because I didn't know that part of him.
Yeah, he's a
And wow,
multifaceted individual.
yeah, yeah. So then when he left, I went to Jay and I went, Jay, oh my God. He goes, oh yeah, Rap. My nickname's Rap because my last name's Rappaport. He goes, no, Rap. He goes, Ozzy's a very smart man. And I just had never seen that side of him. So, but it was nice to see. It was very refreshing to see, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, it's like David Lee Roth, who Van Halen opened for the last Ozzy fronted Sabbath tour in '78. for Never Say Die. A lot of people think David is this stoner surfer, kind of Southern California Jeff Spicoli guy, and he's one of the most read, articulate, smart individuals in the business. You can't judge a book like from a cover, they say.
Yeah, no, and
And
it's
and that
true.
was that changing of the guard. Van
Hmm.
Halen famously blew Sabbath off the stage every night on that tour, 78. And Sabbath sacks Ozzy. They fire him after the end of the tour. They're like, especially Tony Iommi, he says, we can't go on. This is this is done. And everybody bet on Sabbath. They'll find a new singer. And of course, they did with Ronnie Dio. But here comes the solo Ozzy, and we got to give credit to Sharon, but a lot of credit to one Randy Rhodes from Burbank, California, right here up the block, and Bob Daisley from England, who had played. He previously was in Rainbow, as well as other bands. Um,
I think that's fascinating though, why people would bet on Sabbath given how much a front man,
well, they
Ozzy.
had they had the brand name, and Ozzy was kicked to the curb because he was an alcoholic drug addict. That's
Well,
why.
he
They,
was, and it was tough
Matter of
times for
fact,
him.
I did the first interview with Bob Daisley, the longest, most important collaborator of Ozzy's career, and he said when he told people, yeah, I'm forming this band with Ozzy Osbourne, they said, why? He's a has been. He's washed up. He's in the gutter. He's like he's a bum. That's what his friends warned him. Like, are you for sure? Just like you said when Sharon Arden is going to get married to this guy. People are like, wow, he's gonna
He's going to be a handful.
eat your pet.
Yeah, right. But like you never know. Look, they had a wonderful relationship for a lot of years. I mean, they've had their rocky times, and most marriages do, you up and down and sideways. But but I wasn't really paying attention other than when somebody said there was going to be a solo Ozzy record. I got excited just because I know what he's really he's the face of Black Sabbath. You can't take that away with all due respect to Dio. And I saw Sabbath with Dio, and it was a thing, different, but it wasn't, it's like seeing Pink Floyd without Roger Waters. It's good, but it's not the same, right? It can't be the same. It just can't be, it's like Mick solo records and Keith solo records. They're good, but it's not the Rolling Stones. So, I think it's similar, at least for me. It's just my opinion. I mean, everybody's got an opinion. I mean, I appreciated the Dio years. I mean, I think Dio's really a great talent. Um, but, I mean, I don't look at Aerosmith has tried to, to kick out Steven Tyler, because he can be a handful. Right? We're going to go on with another lead singer. How are you going to be Aerosmith without Steven Tyler? Journey got lucky because they found a kid who could sing just like Steve Perry. But even he doesn't claim to be Steve Perry. He says, I'm singing a legacy. He goes, I know who I am, I know who I'm not, and I'm singing a legacy. I'm singing,
Yeah.
so at least he's
Well,
got it right. But the point is, I'm not surprised of Ozzy's solo career, which was brilliant. Um, and because of Randy Rhodes, because it takes a village, right? You
yeah.
listen to the records with Ozzy and Randy Rhodes,
It's a brand new
it,
guitar hero.
it's a
He
brand
was
new guitar
unknown to
hero,
the masses.
right? Brand new guitar hero. And now you've got a thing called Black Sabbath, which works, but Ozzy's own music as Ozzy is, um, I mean, you can't, it's apples and oranges. I don't want to say as good, but I want to say as good because it is. It's like, it's just different. It's a different thing, but let's not compare them. Let's just say that his solo records are on the same level. Those songs and the guitars and all that stuff, they reach a level of Black Sabbath greatness, right? In his own, just
Yeah.
they're solo, but they're,
Well, ultimately,
you know,
solo, he outsold Sabbath.
I didn't know that.
Yes, no question. Well, let me ask you this. Of course, Blizzard of Oz comes out, and it was a band. Bob Daisley, Randy Rhoads, Lee Kursak, they all said, we formed a band. It was a four-member band. And
Right.
then all of a sudden it became, Sharon says, no, 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 it's a solo act, and you're the sideman. And they're like, well, no, that's not why we joined. But in March 27th of 81, they're gearing up for their second album, Diary of a Madman. There's an Epic Records annual sales meeting at Century City,
Yeah.
famous offices.
Yep.
What did you know about this meeting where Ozzy had two doves in his pockets and he was supposed to throw them up in the air like a kind of a peace offering? He puts up the peace signs live. He's got these doves in his pocket and probably had a little too much to drink.
Um, it's funny because he's passed now, and maybe Sharon, and I don't know how many interviews he's done, so I don't know how much of it is Ozzy being the showman or Ozzy just, literally being drunk and snorting ants. I don't like. I don't. It's a fuzzy line there. But I did a lot of my work in California, and I remember that somebody grabbed me because it was like an hour later and said, oh my God, did you hear what happened at the Epic meeting?" I go, "What are you talking about?" Said Ozzy. I go, "Yeah." He said, he bit the head off a dove. I was like, "What?" And they were freaked, right?
It's Hollywood. You're thinking it's a prop and some
Yeah,
fake
that's what I
blood, but
thought.
no,
That's
it's
exact.
a living,
That's what I thought. I thought it was
breathing.
a prop. That's exactly what I thought. I went, well, he's a showman. He's probably got a rubber dove. And they go, no, no, you don't understand. The people were like freaked out. He freaked people out. And of course, um, you know, look, we're still talking about it. I mean that.
Bad publicity is good publicity.
Well, for that kind of publicity for the Oz, right? It was like, who does that? Um, But I remember somebody running up to me because it had just happened, and I said, "No, that didn't happen." I had to go find somebody and go, "Did this really happen?" I probably got a hold of my friend Harvey Leeds and, "Hey, did this really happen?" "Oh yeah." Like, so. But I think that I think look, you need people, whether they go to that extent or not. Ozzy Osbourne was always authentic. Like he is who he is, right? This is him. This is his persona. This is what he's about. He doesn't go home every night and eat doves for dinner. I mean, but this is his, I think that's why people love him so much because he is the everyman and he's authentic. It's real. It's like this is who I'm going to be. Um, I remember Howard Stern interviewing him once. I was listening to the interview and he goes, "Well, you have kids now?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, they're like in school, like they're like in high school. What do they when people run up to them and go, 'Hey, you're what do you tell them to tell their friends?'" He said, he said, just just tell them your dad's nuts." So he had no answer, right? Just tell them your dad's is a crazy guy. But look, the guy's a father. He's a lot of things. But I think that there are a lot of rock bands, but there are people that change the face of the music. Those are the ones that hit us the hardest. The Van Halens of the world changes the face of rock sound. Lane Staley dies from Alice in Chains. I mean, the whole Seattle sound changed the face of music, of rock music. Black Sabbath changed the face of rock music. Those hit us harder because they're not the bands that come later. They're not the sound alike bands, right? These guys invented this sound, right? Um, so uh, for all that he was and all that he meant, and how much we all loved the guy, you just you don't think of. It's interesting. I worked a lot with Judas Priest, and they're really great people. They're like amazing people. I wrote a nice chapter in my book about them just to show people how nice they are. But But you don't think of Rob Halford in the same way. Rob's, you know, he comes at it in a different mode, you know, off stage, nicest guy in the world. I mean, you have a cup of tea with him, you don't even know he's Rob Halford, Rob Halford. But on stage, his persona's different. So, people appreciate Rob Halford's vocal. They appreciate Judas Priest. Um, but people love Ozzy Osbourne. Um, and I'm just trying to think of any other metal act that I know where I'd say Bruce Dickinson probably. People love Bruce from Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
We'll talk about the impact that the success of Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman. Now you have this new multi-platinum act in the building, and seems like there's no end in sight.
no, it's a big deal because all of a sudden, you know, people think that record companies that we make up all the priorities, and then that we just say we're these people are our priority, and and then we leave other people behind like it's our, like we're sort of making them and breaking them. But that's not really true. We promote everything, and then as things grow, that's how we know what to work more on. Even a brand new band, we're getting airplay for everybody. When listeners start calling radio and go, we want to hear more of that. That's a signal to us, right? We're like reading the tea leaves. Like, tell us, what's working. What do you want
Yeah,
to
the
hear more of?
squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Well, it's not. Well, the squeaky wheel could be a manager, like in your ear, but this is more of success. Like, oh, this song is getting success on the radio. This band, the whole idea is to get, um, people to let they want more of this music. Well, so Ozzy becomes a superstar now. Epic is the sister label to Columbia. Epic has their fair share of rock superstars. They got Stevie Ray Vaughan, they got Jeff Beck. Now they got Ozzy, but Ozzy is now huge right now. Now he's like this worldwide phenomenon. And so he takes a lot more of their time and energy because now he's earned that. You listen to those records. Come on, man. It's like that. Those albums don't just happen by themselves. It's a lot of hard work to make good music and record good music and get the right musicians. So no, he was one of their superstars, and it made Epic a bigger label. Like, just like Mike.
It has to
Right.
attract other acts.
Well,
There's
but once you
heavy
add,
bands that are like, I want to be on the label.
I want to be on the label Ozzy is. I mean, that was also Michael Jackson's label. All of a sudden, Epic is becoming not it used to be our sister label. It was like we were the big label, and they're like the, for lack of a better word, the little label that works, also. But when you start having acts like Ozzy Osbourne blow up like that, and Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jeff Beck and Michael Jackson, all of a sudden, that's like, makes the label huge. It's just good for everybody. It's just good for everybody. And imagine being Ozzy, and he's had his troubles, but a lot of people have it. A lot of people have had troubles. Read Eric Clapton's autobiography. Jesus, God, heroin, alcohol. I mean, the guy's lucky to be alive. And a lot of people go through that because it was a druggy time, but if you think about Ozzy living through it all and making the best of it, then the guy has a television show, for God's sakes. I mean, come on. Like, there was a time when they wanted to ban his music. Do you remember all that? Like, it's the devil's music, and the government was after.
They were on trial for suicide solution.
Yeah, it was like they go from there to he goes on there to being on a sitcom or reality TV. It's like come on.
Yeah, and then of course he survived the untimely passing of Randy Rhoads in that freak plane accident.
No, he survived it, but none of us really survived it. If you're a Randy Rhoads fan, there's a dent in all of us.
Oh,
When he passes,
I mean,
you just
we think of Randy every day, but I'm saying
there's a big
career-wise, he could have been derailed. It's like AC/DC when they lost Bon Scott.
Yes, he could have. Yes, he could have. Let me just hang on. If everybody's watching,
But
I'm
yeah,
still. Yes, we're
Jakey
all
Lee
still.
comes
So,
in, a
yeah.
local San Diego native. So another Southern Californian saves the day.
Well, I think
Bark of the Moon.
yeah. Well, I think that uh, but again, that's my point. Like you learn to survive. Like you're going to have to get over it. You're going to have to grieve, and then but you're still in this business, and you're still known, and you know, so that's the way of it. Um, I just think when you get people that are bigger than life, and of course they're different. But when I think like when David Bowie passed, it was like, what? There's so much David Bowie in here. How can that guy be gone? It's the same with Ozzy. They're on that level. They're on like that mega level. What? You know, he just means that much to the planet. His person, not just the
Well,
music.
we'll talk about the,
His the soul of Ozzy. You know what I'm telling you? It's like
yeah.
it's like wow.
I mean,
You
talk
know.
about the fact that they had that big final grand finale, and 2 weeks later he's gone. I mean, it's almost like he kept himself together until he got to the finish line. And literally, some people are saying for the first time in history, someone could actually watch his own funeral because all those bands were paying tribute to him. The final farewell of Black Sabbath with Bill Ward, all Metallica, Guns N' Roses, everybody, Slayer, everybody played, and it was like watching your own memorial.
Well, I
And
think, look, I've had two parents that have passed away, and my personal experience is that they sort of take care of the business they know they need to take care of, and then then it's okay. I don't know what happens after we die. I do believe in life after death. I believe something happens. Um, but my experience is that um, that they need to get to the finish line. You know, I remember talking to my mom on the phone because I had just seen her, and I flew back to New York, and then they said she was passing away. She had just seen her whole family, and I'm talking to her on the phone, and I'm literally saying, "Mom, I don't. If you have to leave before I get back there, it's okay. I just want you to know if it's time to go, it's okay because um, you and I have said everything we need to say to each other." I was like giving her permission. So, from what I know about death and life after death, I'm totally convinced that Ozzy either didn't want to live the way he was living or actually was so sick he was getting ready to check out. I don't know which one's the case, but I'm not surprised that after he saw that if somebody from upstairs said, "Hey, Oz, it's time to go," he'd go, "Okay, I'm ready." I was shocked that he passed, but the more I thought about it, I went, "Nah, I get it." You know.
well, I mean, in his frail condition, it's great, one, that he didn't pass away weeks before the event, and two, that he was able to actually sing, even though he was seated in the throne. He
Yeah,
could
I
still
think no,
vocalize.
he could still look like, but I think people like that will themselves to be there. You're talking about a guy who's been on stage his whole life. He's professional. I think he just willed
Well, yeah, he
himself.
lived. He lives for the audience. I mean,
Yeah, he willed himself to be there because he didn't look so great on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame
yeah.
TV show.
Hmm.
When we saw that, I didn't know how sick he was. When I saw that, I went, "Oh my God, he's like really sick." But he still did it. Um, so I'm not I'm not surprised. First of all, also because of his work ethic, his pride. This is what people do. I mean, the Stones will do it till they pass away. Springsteen will do it till he passes away. Bob Dylan's 80 something. He's still on the road. That's what they do. That's how they define themselves. They can't not do it. They feel more comfortable on stage than they do at home. So, um, and I'm glad that all that happened for him because he deserves that, right? Come on. You think about how many people change the face of music like that. Even big bands, like take the Eagles, and I'm not a super big fan of the Eagles. I like their first couple of records, but I like the guitar players because I'm a guitar guy. So I like Joe Walsh a lot and Don Felder, and I love Don Henley's solo records. But as a band, the Eagles, when Glenn Frey passes away, it's a big deal. But it ain't like Ozzy passing away. It ain't like David Bowie passing away. It's different.
Well,
You know.
I heard somebody say, and the more I think about it, the more I agree. They said, Ozzy was so accepted by everybody, ages and races and religions. I mean,
Yes.
he was almost like Dolly Parton, because Dolly Parton is someone who appeals to people of all genres, all ages. They became larger than their music or their genre. And the more I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, I went down to Hollywood Boulevard yesterday and shot the growing memorial of flowers and pictures and pics and candles and everything on Ozzy's Star right there near Musicians Institute. And then I went over to the Rock Walk at the Guitar Center. And of course, he's inducted both as Sabbath and a couple stars up as a solo artist. And I realized, like, almost everybody on the planet knows Ozzy, and most of these people aren't heavy metal fans.
No, no, that everybody knows about. That's a really good analogy, the Dolly Parton analogy, because I think in his way, he's not dissimilar, and everybody knows his look, right?
Oh, how
He's
many
a, he's
people play Ozzy for Halloween?
he's a worldwide citizen, right? So it's like that. Yeah, it's big like that. Yeah,
You
exactly.
throw a wig and some
You know.
glasses on, you got your Halloween
Yeah, yeah,
costume.
yeah, 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 yeah.
No, it's pretty remarkable. The eras, the levels. I remember when he did a signing just a few years back for the Scream album at Amoeba, and they made sure they made the Billboard charts by the thousands of records they scanned that day at Amoeba. But clever marketing and Ozzy's passion, passion for making music. And Bob Daisley said he had a friendship and a bond with Ozzy that just exceeded any of the business dealings and the disputes and all of that. At the
Yeah.
core of it all, they were mates.
Oh, I think that's very possible. Here, let me see if you can see this. I don't know if I can put this up.
Awesome.
Wait a second, I can't.
There you
My
go.
right shoulder isn't working well. I wrecked my shoulder surfing. I don't
Yes.
know if that shows, but
No, I could see it. And
wait a second. That's me in the Oz.
yeah, for
That's when
for
I met
for
him. Yeah, that's when I met him.
forever the
So
surfer, man.
yeah.
Yeah, there's something about California, the California Jam. Ozzy lived here obviously for decades,
Hmm.
but he was from the dark black country, the Midlands of England, where it's mainly steel mills and very, very blue collar. When you
Oh,
grow up in Birmingham, you either go to work for the mill
that's
or
it.
you leave
Yeah.
town. You become a soccer player.
Yeah, no, that's it. So that, all of that is in that music, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's incredible to hear your stories. We've been blessed to be joined by the one and only, the longtime CBS, Columbia, epic promotion man, Paul Rappaport. Get his book, Gliders Over Hollywood. And Paul, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Rest in peace to Ozzy Osbourne.
Yep.
Rest in peace to Randy Rhoads. And rest in peace to Lee Kerslake. As I noted with Bob Daisley, he's the last remaining living member of the Blizzard of Oz.
All right. This was very sweet. I really, thanks for having me on.